Hey everyone, it's Owen Tolan from Berkshire Hathaway Commonwealth Real Estate. I am back with another frequently asked questions Friday. I'm a little rusty. It's been a little while since I've done one, but I wanted to get back in the swing of things. I've been busy. Spring market just started, and this video is perfect timing for the spring market. We're seeing it's very competitive, so we have some tips and tricks for buyers. Tips and tricks for buyers to get their offer accepted in multiple offer situations. So I'll run down a list 1 through 4, and I hope you enjoy the video. So number 1 is this sounds simple, but finding out what your seller's wants and needs are. So as the buyer, you want to figure out what the seller wants. Obviously, everyone thinks price is everything. But for example, maybe they want a certain closing date. So you're going to want to do your best to match that closing date that they want as best as possible. For example, contractors and builders, they want to close as quickly as possible. They want to get the property off the books. Whereas maybe a family who's lived in the house for 30 or 40 years, they need time to move their stuff out. So finding out when the best time to close for the seller could go a long way. So if someone, maybe it's a couple extra days is worth $10,000 for the seller. You don't know. So you want to find out when the best closing date is to put your offer in the best position. Another example is we had an offer in on a property last week, and what we did was we asked, is the seller looking for the most money, or are they looking for a clean offer? And they said money is more important. So instead of dropping a contingency, which we'll talk about later, they increase their offer price, a little bit of a give and take. So it's important to figure out what the seller wants first and foremost. I know it sounds simple, but that's the most important part of putting in an offer. So number 2 is discussing what contingencies you may be able to drop from your offer or tweak a little bit in your offer. So for example, with a home inspection, one of our favorite things to do with offers in competitive situations is to do a pre-offer home inspection. Pre-offer home inspection is exactly what it sounds like. You're doing the home inspection before the offer, and that way when you do submit the offer, you can completely waive the inspection contingency because you've already had an inspection. You know exactly what you're paying for. So that's one of our favorite things to do. If a buyer is not comfortable waiving it completely, they can do one before the offer. You obviously have to get the seller's permission to enter the house and do the inspection, but most sellers are willing to do that because at the end of the day, they're going to get a cleaner offer. Another thing, number 2, is mortgage contingency. A lot of buyers aren't willing to waive their mortgage contingency, especially this day and age. Everything's uncertain in terms of jobs and your lifestyle situation, stuff like that. So in terms of mortgage contingency, last week, for example, we waived the appraisal portion of the mortgage contingency. So that means when the bank comes to appraise the property to make sure it's, say if you put an offer of $500,000, they want to make sure the house is worth $500,000 because they're giving you a majority of the money to buy the house. So basically, if it comes in at $480, the appraisal, the house is only worth $480, then the buyer would have to make up the difference. So you want to make sure that you're putting in an offer that makes sense, 1, for you, and 2, that makes sense with the market. You don't want to overpay for something and say, oh yeah, my bank will bail me out. So those 2 things are definitely good ways to tweak the contingencies without completely removing them. The less amount of contingencies, the better. Okay, number 3, this is a very simple one. It's increasing the earnest money deposit. So it sounds simple, but it could be the difference between getting your offer accepted and not. So earnest money deposit is industry standard. When you submit your offer, you put $1,000 down with your offer. You can increase that to $5,000 or $2,500. And then with the purchase and sale, industry standard is 5% with the offer, 5% of the purchase price. You can maybe increase it to 10%. So you just have to check and make sure these are things you're comfortable with, but these little steps can go a long way in terms of getting your offer accepted. So it's definitely worth trying. Okay, and number 4 is, depending on the seller, you may want to do a love letter or an offer letter. What these are is a letter from the buyer directly to the seller saying why you love the house and how you envision yourself being in the house. And I always suggest doing it if the opportunity is right. So for example, I've used this example already, but if it's a builder or a contractor that's flipping the house, they don't care about your love letter. They're not going to read it. But if it's a family that's been in the house for 20 or 30 years, maybe they have some emotional attachment to the house. And by putting in a love letter, I always use this example. If your offer is the exact same as someone else's, having that love letter may put you over the top. So I think it's definitely worth doing in certain situations, but it's not worth doing in all situations. You don't want to pour your heart out in a Word document at 8 o'clock at night and then have them just rip up the offer because it's not the highest. So it definitely depends on the situation. You want to make sure it's right for you. So I hope those 4 tips were very helpful. I know it's very discouraging to be a buyer right now, but you need every little advantage you can get, and knowledge is power in this business. Experience is power in this business. And one of the unspoken things is obviously price means a whole lot. Money talks. So I hope this was very helpful. And if you have any questions, please reach out. If not, have a great day. Thanks.